This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Welcome to Behind the Scenes, for your half-assed entertainment news with no bullshit, with our hosts, the Baroness and Bear Fiorda, only on Talk 4 Me.
I'm the Baroness, here with the only man I cannot emasculate, no matter how hard I try.
And she tries.
Bear Fiorda.
Hey guys.
To Behind the Scenes.
Thank you for having us, or me. I'm the co-host. I don't have to say that. I'm here every week, no matter what.
I can replace you.
I do not need to be grateful. I am contracted.
I can replace you.
There's also no contract.
Okay, so I can replace you at whim.
It's not even a handshake.
Yes, I can. That means I can replace you at whim or annoyance.
I was brought on as a guest host a couple times during the pandemic, and then just much like our life, decided I wasn't going to leave. Just showed up and stayed.
Moved in. That's also how you moved in.
To be fair, I came in to help you. We spent a few weeks together inside the house, and just suddenly more of my stuff appeared, and you're like, "Oh, okay. I guess I just needed some extra clothes." He needed his
I think that's called
his
stalking.
Bags.
I think that's called.
Why
stalking.
is this TV here?
Again, I think that's called stalking. Well, actually, that was a huge argument.
Already.
I've never allowed televisions in the house. The first television we had in the house, I've never been a fan of television.
You've always had computers, though.
I've had computers, but I never really allowed television. We would either go out to a film if we wanted to watch something as a family, or we would do something interactive. But I genuinely am not a fan of television.
It's okay. You don't have to.
And so so that was the only television. Kimberly was thrilled when you came in because you brought a television.
Yes, her daughter was very happy to have a television in the house. Very nice to watch all of her shows on a bigger screen than her mother's computer.
That's not where she was. She had her own computer.
Than her own computer. That's okay. I want to jump right into the topic we had in mind since I brought it up earlier this week, and it's a topic that's going to infuriate me, so I apologize if I get stuck in a tangent.
Are we talking about P. Diddy again?
No, we're talking about the school thing, and I'll need you to moderate a little bit during that, but it's getting big, and I want to keep it going, to be honest with you. There's a district in New York. It's the Buffalo School District. It's made up of a couple different schools, superintendent, or board of whoever, but they have 17,000 collected calls to law enforcement, ranging where it's like half of them are described as miscellaneous nonsense, which means the cops show up and the administration's like, "Oh, nothing happened. Don't worry about it." And the cops are like, "All right, whatever." And they take off. But all of them are related to child abuse. All of them related to children assaulting children, children assaulting adults, drugs, misappropriation of like weed gummies going to kids, people sneaking in weapons to the school, teachers.
I'm not surprised by that. I was actually sexually assaulted in an American high school here. When I came out, and now I have a cousin working at the school, but I'm actually, as soon as he retires, going to be suing the school.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're trying not to make trouble for him right now.
That's the only reason
I didn't know you were pursuing something like that. I'm proud of you.
I'm going to. And it's simply, it's been too long for me to get anything from them.
Yeah.
But I want them to do something about it because that problem's getting worse, not better.
Well, before I pursue this, I should also shout out to Angry Cops, Richard High. There's a couple other guys who their ats are like the fat electrician, donut operator. These are all like ex-law enforcement, current law enforcement, but ex-military who have discovered this in Investigator High's district where he works as an investigative officer out there.
I think the problem is this isn't one district. I just gave you the Los Angeles School District.
Sorry, I'm discussing the one, but yeah, it's like a widespread problem.
But I think that's the problem.
Yeah,
I think the issue is that problem. We know I had issues. I know a young girl that had issues in the Palm Springs School Department with being touched inappropriately, and nothing was done.
And it just seems that consistently the school districts across the board, by the way, are always trying to make themselves look as nice as possible and not actually look out for the safety of their kids, especially that one.
It's not especially that one. That one is no worse than any other.
Oh, come on.
Absolutely not.
Now we're going to get into a debate.
Okay, you think it is worse than my being sexually assaulted on premises?
No, I do
them
think
refusing to call the police, them moving schools because I couldn't identify the person.
Now, hold on. I am not dismissing what happened to you.
But
I'm saying that they have more cases.
No, but I wasn't the only case.
Okay.
You're talking about this is a trend. The girl we're talking about in Palm Springs was not an isolated case. I had issues before my son passed when he was in the school district with sexual assault and them doing nothing. And the reason they didn't was a trans student sexually assaulted my son. And they said, well, their argument was the trans student was confused.
Well, they'll kind of argue anything at that point because they just, what are you going to do to prevent it?
I called
get rid of the kid, which
I want the kid out.
Yeah,
and I called the police. But the reality is it takes proactive parenting for this to change. And the issue is a lot of parents are not proactive. And they're underpaying the teachers. They're at a point where they're underpaying teachers. Good teachers are leaving because children are so poorly behaved that they will not teach. So now you're getting more and more teachers that don't want to be there and cannot be bothered. You're getting parents that are using the school system as a babysitter. What do they think is going to happen? They can say this school district's bad, but it's no worse than any other school district. The problem isn't one school district. It's the entire system. It is the entire system. You have a system that incentivizes not telling because the school is financially penalized for problems. That's why the gang problems in the 1980s and 90s got so bad in the United States. One of the things the World Health Organization and the UN talked about were the gang problems in the United States schools in New York, specifically in the 80s and 90s, and how the financial incentivization of students passing tests and not reporting violent crime. By giving the schools more money for that, you incentivize them not to tell.
Note that it's not having violent crimes. It's not reporting violent crimes.
And so what's happened is you've created a system where, no, this school is not worse than any other. And the problem is that people are treating it like it is. So rather than looking at this as a national problem, looking at the schools in New York, I mean, you have school shootings.
Yeah.
You have all of these problems. How is the worst thing happening that someone didn't report weed gummies? You have teachers quitting in droves because Gen Z is so poorly behaved and Gen Alpha is so poorly behaved that they won't sit through class.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick because it's not, now that said, it's still not the worst, but it's not that they found weed gummies, that an assistant principal had mishandled her high milligram weed gummies and let these two kids eat it to the point where they're arresting heart rates of like 160. And they were going to the hospital and they had to be pumped. Like, it's terribly incompetent people.
But that is happening constantly.
Yeah, I'm sure all types of misconduct and negligence happening in all school systems and intentional decisions, not just negligence.
But that's it. There are intentional decisions. There's negligence. And the reason that teacher is there and you're keeping these incompetent teachers is because people are incentivized not to teach. You underpay your teachers, you penalize them for unionization, and your children are terrible. Yeah. I'm sorry. Parents take their children's side rather than the teacher's side. And I'm a huge believer in if the teacher calls me and says my kid did something, I believe the teacher.
I'd probably be a little bit more like, hey, let's figure out what happened. Especially if it's really out of character. I wouldn't just believe the first thing a teacher told me. No, it's still a stranger to me.
No. You know your children. If they call you and say, for example, hey, your daughter jailbroke the school computers. Yeah, I believe that.
Right, that's fine. I believe that. But I'm saying for out-of-pocket things you may not be
I understand.
That's not really what a kid does.
But the argument, parents are so worried about getting their children to pass that they are not worried about whether or not the children should. The school is penalizing teachers for failing. My cousin teaches math in high school. And anyone now can take trig, even if you're not qualified. And he's not allowed to fail them. He has to give them a D because the No Child Left Behind policies.
I swore that was, I thought they dropped that process already.
The No Child Left Behind,
yeah.
But the policies still exist in the systems. Oh. The systems were rebuilt around the federal mandate. So what happened, this federal mandate goes in, the feds can pull back the mandate, but the school system's already changed all their rules to apply.
Okay.
So essentially, you're not giving children Fs, you're giving them Ds. Then they get into university, get their first Fs, and go, why am I getting Fs?
If they get to university.
If they get to university.
We're making a broad
most of them are not going to pass city college. Kids are so stupid now, and I am saying stupid. Children have gotten so stupid they cannot pass basic reading, and that is entirely their parents and the school system's fault. If my child couldn't read and the school wasn't doing it, why am I not paying for education?
Wait, sorry, hit me with that again. The school's not making them read, or what?
No, it's not.
No, I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
They're not. They're passing children that cannot read. They're passing illiterate students and calling it okay. Look, America is not in a great place here. You have an entire generation that's illiterate, raised on iPads with no attention span. Then you have the baby boomers that are now hoarding wealth in a degree that we've never, ever seen. And America's going, cool.
Well, we are.
I mean, if you guys, again, if you want to,
we're just going to become like France back in, when did they have that big revolution? It was like 1800s, 1700s. Yeah, okay.
Look, I'm just saying.
Off with his head.
That's pretty much it. I hope America rebels, because the direction you guys are going is turning. They are now paying people. They're talking about paying women to have children. Once you incentivize reproduction, I advise everyone to look at Eastern Europe for what happened. When you pay and incentivize people to have children, those children are not taken care of, because you're not incentivizing them to raise the children.
Right.
You're incentivizing them to have the children.
And that's it. There's no care after the fact. It's kind of like how when we really push not pro-choice, we really push pro-life, then you have the kid and there's absolutely zero support systems for the kid. And then it becomes military age and all those support systems come back for a little bit. Like, hey, come join the military. We want you in the service.
What is our sound engineer saying? He always says the best stuff.
He's just telling us, he's welcoming our guest to the channel, and our guest is letting us know that she is there listening, and we're bringing her in just actually momentarily for that matter.
Oh, good. This is exactly the conversation she wants. Who does not want to come in on a conversation on reproductive
it does not
rights?
Have to
that
be
is
about
the
this
point that everyone wants to be. Yeah.
Well, how about we ask you ourselves? Welcome to the show, Eugenia Kuzmina. Hope I said that properly. How are you doing today?
Hi, guys. Oh, my God. So excited to be here and so interesting to listen to your conversation. It's very heated and I'm fascinated by it because, being a mom, I can totally understand a lot of points.
And interesting is a very good compliment for what we're having it out right now. Well, how are you doing today?
I'm so excited. I came from Siberia, so I can never complain about the weather anywhere, so to say.
So you came from the coldest place on earth. Can you tell our audience just a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm really excited actually talking about what happened to you. We're doing a special show with Tiffany Haddish, and I created a comedy show called Models of Comedy with Barry Katz, who is an incredible manager. Give voices, to other people who don't have a voice, and we're doing for women Against Violence International on June 8th. It's a special show, fundraiser. I'm really excited to be part of it. I do comedy. I've been in 74 films. I'm a mom. I write books, created a community, Model Mom TV as a blog, just to have other passionate parents, who are kind of want to educate their kids, right? And just want to work as well, very passionate about what they do. And I race cars sometimes. So.
And you race cars sometimes.
That is incredible.
America's the right spot. Did you know you're going to do all this when you're growing up on the playground with your buddies, or did you kind of fall into it later in life?
Well, my dad was a first responder to Chernobyl disaster, so I definitely was around brilliant people, brilliant artists in Russia in the time when it was post-Soviet regime, when everything was denied. So I had a lot of dreams, but, I knew that I had to overcome a lot of things that, weren't allowed for us to know. And I was punished. I was beaten with rulers for questioning the history of, the time of the regime. And I wanted to be an astronaut, but they told me, as a woman, you have to be a stewardess. So I didn't settle for that. So I think I'm still kind of trying to accomplish, bigger goals.
Your father was a first responder to Chernobyl.
Yeah.
My God.
Yes, he was incredible, and he taught me so much about just human nature and curiosity and how to be compassionate. Obviously, at the time, the government couldn't release all the information, and a lot of people died because, the scientists weren't allowed to, to talk about it. I don't know if you guys seen the movie, but I think it's pretty accurate on HBO, so it was very
I've
hard
seen
to
that, like
find.
the mini series.
I haven't seen the movie, but we obviously in history class, one of the things we learned about was the Chernobyl disaster, and they talk about I was very it was by the time I was in high school, it hadn't, it was the early 80s when it happened, and it had hit the history books by 2 years later. Globally, this had hit the history books as one of the most disastrous moments in human history.
I know, we wish we learned from that, right? In the times that we live in now.
I know that they actually just cracked the dome protecting Chernobyl. There was a drone strike.
No kidding.
Yeah, there was a Russian drone strike during the war right now, and they actually just cracked the dome, the protective dome that took them forever to build. It was a contained dome, and they intentionally cracked it.
Huh.
Yeah,
that sounds dangerous to me.
I try to support the environment a lot just because my dad taught me kind of other things. So being in Los Angeles now, we work a lot with, the fire disaster situation, because it's still relevant in a lot of places for wild nature and things like that. So
you sound like you're really big, and maybe through your father, through your life experiences, like activism. That's really what I'm getting from you a lot of, is you're doing all these wonderful projects to support other groups of people or the environment, but you're in comedy and you were a model. I mean, do you use these things to help that? Is that your main goal, and these are just ways you can support it?
I think so. Yeah. I came from literally nothing, food lines. I had to figure out how to, be an immigrant in Paris. I know it sounds very glamorous, but I was living in bunk beds with other models, and you have to pay rent and other things. So it's not that glamorous behind the scenes, actually.
You came out during the Slavic doll era. When they
exactly. I mean, now it's changed so much. The business is very different. But at the time, now they get probably more refugees. I work with Model Alliance as well. It's like organization that protects. It protects models. I was just talking to them, recently to be part of our show. But it's not as glamorous. At that time, they were taking girls from Brazil, from all the third world countries, and now I feel like they take refugees from the war zones.
They do. So for those that don't know, there's a time called the Slavic doll era in modeling. And essentially what that means is when the Iron Curtain fell, they found all these gorgeous, really gorgeous women in Eastern Europe, and they started bringing them out. But they were bringing them out, making them work more hours than they did any other models, making them do more jobs and paying them less. And it actually led to unionization, laws changing, and a lot of problems. And these were very slim women that they were pushing to the point. There was a gorgeous model that passed, actually, because she got so slim, she essentially died of starvation. So it was a time.
Brazil, that happened in Brazil to girls because their standards is just it's impossible. You have to starve yourself. I definitely that's part of the comedy that I open up. I'm so hungry, because it is a problematic thing.
It is.
Speaking
they didn't. So something I'm going to say is I worked with Victoria's Secret, and I always exempt them from this. Is we always had to have that little, I don't anymore, but we always had to have that little bit more weight because we were in our underwear. They didn't want to see the bones. And so they were very, if you got signed with them, you were very lucky. Anyone else, you were starving. Not that you ate much with Victoria's Secret, but I'll never knock them. They gave me a career. So you came out in the hardest time, essentially, in modeling ever. That's considered the hardest time. Sorry, I was like, that's considered the hardest time in modeling history, where women were thoroughly exploited, where it was that and you were staying in Paris.
I think it's pretty interesting now because now with the use of AI, it changes completely. I don't know if you guys read H&M signed a lot of models, to give their
their likeness.
So it's a strange time, definitely, for artists, to find your footing.
I think that we have the same thing in the film industry. We had strikes and points to Fran Drescher. She was actually the head of SAG and really pushed so that we wouldn't be able to purchase likenesses. Unfortunately, models don't have the same protection that actors have. I wish they did. An actor, I can't buy their image for a day, then make a whole movie or a whole campaign on them. I'd have to still pay them for the whole campaign. Where with a model, I can buy them for the day, scan them, and then put them in the campaign. So it's taking what would be a whole campaign or a whole stretch's worth of work and boiling it down to one series of photos. So it's.
But I was talking to some producers. I mean, my husband used to run Miramax, so like I'm pretty like involved into in the middle of like productions as well, and like I think there will be a need for like authentic things and like live shows and theater and a lot of I think as humans we're still gonna need like authentic things. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. AI is coming a long ways. It's gonna go I can't imagine the depths of how far it's gonna go, and may even replace us one day as people. But there's always gonna be that draw to have something real in front of you, real talking to you, real that you can connect with.
In your industry specifically, you're a cage fighter. You punch people, you fight.
Yeah.
There is not the same oomph that you would have if it was AI because it's pre-programmed. You need that. You've walked runways. I always had a big butt, so I was fine in underwear, but I couldn't do high fashion. You can't replace that. You cannot. You're right. There are certain things you could never replace. You could never replace the authenticity of a stage show, of a runway, of a cage fight.
Yeah,
absolutely not. We talked about comedy as well here quite a bit. You mentioned it earlier. What was it like kind of going from model to comedian? Was it easy, difficult? Did you have anything particularly notable that you struggled with or that was exciting for you?
Well, it's a really strange journey. I mean, I never considered myself funny at all. Still don't. Like some people are really funny all the time, like 24/7. But I think I am definitely a strange person. Maybe that helps. I came to Hollywood just, because I had a kid at the time and I was, married to a producer. So I kind of found myself in this town and I started doing films. But what I found out is like, it's so political, and being Russian, I was always like, okay, you can play girls of the oldest profession or, or models or, dead wives.
You're a mob wife, a hooker, or a
exactly.
Or a villain. Yeah,
I know. So I got bored pretty fast. I was like, I would open every script and I'm like, okay, I memorized my lines. And then I was doing a film, Fading Gigolo, with Woody Allen, who I just find actually so talented despite like everything, like such an amazing artist. And I learned so much on set from him. And then, he said, well, you can always take power back in your hands. Like, no, there's nobody who's telling you to do something as an artist. And that's what I teach, all the girls who just start out. You can be a woman producer, you can do other things. Like there's so many doors. If somebody says no, you can still open. So I came back and I hired a coach, Jerry Corley, who used to work with Leno, and he taught me how to write jokes. It's kind of like writing music, and then you just find your voice. And it's an interesting circus of people. I think it's all about being really authentic. I think everybody can do it, but it takes commitment for sure, and just courage, like to be laughed at or not to be funny sometimes, and they throw tomatoes and you just move on. So.
No, we always hear, I think anyone who's been alive and seen a video on the internet at some point understands that they can hit a really bad crowd, and then you're bombing for whatever reason. The bits that did great yesterday are not hitting today for some reason. I actually never been able to understand that myself, how you can have such dramatically different impressions from different people.
Comedy is the hardest part of entertainment because you don't know if you're going to connect with that audience, and it may have nothing to do with you. It could be region, it could be day, it could be anything. It is something, the hardest part. They say if you want to be fearless, go up and do an open mic. That'll teach you to, fear nothing. So
I believe that.
That is a huge leap, going from modeling, which is one very specific set of skills, into comedy. I mean, that's huge. a huge
I
difference.
think it's always good to grow as a person. That's why they always ask, like, oh, you used to be a model, now you're not a model. I do everything. I don't want to be boxed into one category. I think people always try to tell, like, oh, now you're an actor, now you're a model. Like, what do you prefer? Now you're a mom, And that's why, like, I started Model Mom Blog, talking to other parents, because I had kids pretty early and I really wanted to work. I had so much things to give, and I felt very, kind of box into, like, okay, now you're a mom and you have to model mom clothes and you have to behave a certain way.
That I never understood.
Ooh.
There's like this thing where suddenly you become a mom and you're not, and you're supposed to not be sexy anymore.
Or I don't know.
You're just supposed to be a mom. I'm like, I've never gotten that, and so it's very strange. It's how before and after mom becomes this different brackets almost.
I always try to push against that. That's why, I talk to so many incredible, talented people who kind of overcame adversity in that sense. And that's why I was really excited to start racing cars as well. That was kind of a, side way, but that's an amazing thing that, like,
that's the next series of questions.
Let's start. How did that come about?
That was the next series of questions.
How did you start racing cars? No, let's do it now.
Yeah. So, well, I was doing a TV show in Vegas, like, about cars, just hosting something. And then I was modeling with the cars. And then one day, this company called Optimum Batteries, who works with Leno and, like, other people, during pandemic, actually, they flew me to the Midwest, and I had no idea, but they're like, okay, you're actually going to race cars. I showed up in my high heels, and it was a real race, like a road race, which was very challenging. And I qualified and I fell in love with it. It's actually an amazing skill, because I feel it is a little bit like comedy, because you have to be so present. You have to really, like, use your left mind and right mind. And, as somebody in the fight, you probably have the same feeling, right? Like, you have to be so present. You have to, think, but also, like, feel, but also figure it out. It's just such a rush of adrenaline. And I think there's not enough female racers, but I found one coach who has, a track in Los Angeles, Martina Kwan, and she teaches people how to race cars. And, I just started from there.
That is so awesome.
And all I'm thinking now is Lifetime's looking for female-driven shows. We should do a reality show about female racers. I'm just saying. We need to discuss that after. Yeah. So I was like,
Martina is like a world champion, and she's just amazing creating the school. I think there's so much to explore in there. I think you have
I love that. Okay, we're gonna have to talk about that. But that it's so you went from, and this is going to sound terrible, but I can see your father was at Chernobyl. You grew up in one of the hardest times, in one of the roughest places in the modern age, in one of the largest transitions in history. Your life has been this constant set of upheaval. I'm not surprised you ended up racing cars. The level of the level of adrenaline that your entire life has contained, that just kind of seems like a culmination.
Maybe, I think it's so amazing to be alive. We're so lucky. I can't complain, like, yeah, it's true. When you look back, and there's so many more unfortunate people, that, like, I always try to give back, but I think it's amazing to be alive and just always challenge the boxes that you're put in. Like, it never ends. I think learning is a thing that keeps us young, curious, and alive. And, that's something that we're
When are you going to write a book?
I actually wrote a couple books already. I did a Her Story conference. It's, came out of TED Talk. It's for women during pandemic, and invited a couple of my friends to be part of it. It's on Amazon, called Model Mom. It's about, like, trying to find authentic self, because when I became a mom, I was so excited about it. I came back to my contracts in modeling, but clients wouldn't hire me. Like, I put my kids' pictures in the portfolio. I lost all the weight, but they're like, okay, we're not sure if you can commit. So I started hiding my kids. I started hiding the fact that I had kids.
No, I get that.
And then I was like, okay, I became dissociated. I dress as a mom who's very tired to bring them to school. And then I changed into short skirts, and I didn't know who I was anymore. So I thought, like, it's really important to be authentic and be an example. I mean, of a mess. Probably my kids want to prove that, because they're teenagers.
Oh yeah, of course.
But I think it is important to not be, like, perfect picture, you know. And I did write a book about that, and I'm writing a poetry book right now that I'm collaborating with illustrators. I'm very excited about that next.
You know, it's interesting talking about it's okay not to be that absolutely perfect persona in person. And something I think you probably maybe see a lot of people try and do that is on social media. You're huge on social media.
I'd like to remind everyone, every time we use bad language, we give money to the Boys and Girls Club of America, the Humane Society of America, and Free MMA. We swear, because Bear has a filthy mouth, so now we give money to charity.
It counts. Yes. But I was going to ask, how does that impact that same belief of, you know, I don't have to hide things. I don't have to pretend to be someone else, because it's really pushed on social media to do exactly that.
I mean, trust me, I use filters sometimes. So, at least be like honest about it. That's what I don't understand. You know, there's a lot of pressure, and like as anybody else, I do struggle with that. You know, but I think it's important to be grounded and have real friends, and you know, people who will be there even if you're at the lowest point in your life. You know, I think that's the most important, because obviously everybody will be there when you have like millions of followers and things like that, but that's not real. I think it's very important. At least my kids are not on social media. I'm very proud of them. You know, they understand that it is a big mental challenge. Like, I know, especially for young adults, you know, the bullying and everything else, it's really hard.
Oh, absolutely. Of course. I don't mean to deviate, but I thought of an interesting question. And this is a two-parter. So this is the first part. If your kids right now, when they grow up, if they wanted to be either a model or a comedian or race cars professionally, how do you feel about them doing any of these things?
They definitely don't want it, because they were child models, and I think that I use it as a labor, which I probably came from an idea like, okay, if you get paid $1,000, you have to take it. But they grew up in a completely different environment. You know, they went on Guy Ritchie's set and said like, oh, I don't believe it. You know, they're surrounded by all kind of craziness. So I think actually very proud of my kids. They're very, very grounded. My son is like really big in tennis, and my daughter loves animals. So they have different values. Like for them, you know, they're not chasing illusions, so to say, because I feel a lot of times people come, especially to LA, with like the idea of chasing illusions, not for the right reason. And that's like a thing that I don't understand, you know, and especially now, like nobody wants to have any kind of skills. They just want to be big on TikTok or whatever.
Yeah, they want to
be famous.
It's an influencer. It's funny. The people I have seen that are most successful in any form of entertainment are usually the people that one, put their entire life into it, and very few people are willing to do that. And even in the fight world, the people that do the best, these guys go take business classes, media classes. I mean, these are not, you know, guys that don't know what they're doing. And I think we all sell this great image in Hollywood of being discovered. No such thing. You work your butt off. Like this.
I don't know. I think it's such an illusion. I just came from Cannes Film Festival just talking about illusions, you know, right and left. And
I think there's only one place in the world where you get discovered. And I say it that way because, yes, there are scouts in sports that'll come and look at you, but no one's going to show up to your school if no one tells them to show up.
But that's it. That's still you putting effort to find them. When you became a model, I'm guessing nobody showed up and gave you $1 million contract overnight.
Gosh, no, I was like, I had to learn, you know, really hard because I was very shy. And thank God, you know, Yves Saint Laurent was kind of the same thing. And like, I had a career because of that. But it's really hard, you know, it takes a lot of skills, and you work with people. You have to understand, you know, people have to like taking you on, you know, trips, and it's long days of like 12 hours, like you said, not eating and, you know, jumping up and down, and it's very physical. And, you know, people just don't see behind the scenes of that. And a lot of girls I saw who went to the clubs, you know, didn't finish so well. So you have to have a business head. You have to know how to pay taxes, create LLCs, you know, and you're a teenager. So nobody teaches you those skills. You have to really have a head on your shoulder.
That's you hit the nail on the head. You really did. And that's exactly it. If you are out drinking, you're going to be fried and you're going to look like hell, and no one's going to hire you. If you're exhausted, and you will be exhausted, you need as much sleep and water as possible. You need to know how to protect your money. You need to make sure you don't have, predatory people taking it. Yves Saint Laurent actually has a very good reputation with its models compared to a lot of brands.
I mean, I started modeling when the designers were the designers. Now it's like, completely changed with the fashion industry. It's really hard to find new designers. Like, that's fascinating to me.
They seem to just take them and move one to the other. I know Loewe's current designers going over to Dior. They just have like the same 5 guys and they're moving around. I actually liked Balenciaga's guy. I know he was really controversial, but he's leaving, and then Loewe's old guy is now going over to him.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I started when the designers were the designers, so it was fascinating to work like Alexander McQueen or Vivienne Westwood. She was incredible. Just like to be around that talent, it's taught me a lot.
Now that to me is incredibly impressive. I adore. I love Vivienne Westwood.
Oh, she was amazing.
I love Alexander McQueen. I never got the chance to meet either. I was in an entirely different side, and I absolutely worship them. So, and Vivienne Westwood she was knighted. She was a dame. She really changed history, and she saved an entire textile industry in the UK. The Scottish wool industry was going out. The orb that she uses is the Scottish wool industry's orb and satin, which was for the past and future. She was incredible. McQueen, same thing, designs for the royal family. I mean, really, incredible people. And you worked for them when their brands belonged to them.
Yeah, and they were more than just designers. I think they had such a vision. Visionaries in any profession is like really fascinating to me.
They changed the world. That was the birth of so for those that don't know, back in the day, ready-to-wear fashion from these designers was not as prevalent as it is now. Now you can go to TJ Maxx and find it. Drives me crazy. But back in when ready-to-wear was starting, they were able to be more experimental with their clothing. These designers were more hands-on, and that was the birth of the supermodel also came from that. So
my first agent created that. It's kind of fascinating to me, the whole concept. I don't know if you know, but they said, okay, we only gonna present these 5 girls, and if you don't hire one of the girls, none of the girls gonna work. So they really pushed for the marketing of it, and I thought it was so brilliant. That's kind of like what I did with Models of Comedy, because not a lot of people know that models can talk or be funny, and they're amazing. They're amazing artists. And, me and Barry Katz, we scouted this incredible pool of talent and gave them a platform, and it's going amazing for good cause.
I love that. I love that you're doing that.
Oh, absolutely. What was it like scouting for this talent, for these comedians you also modeled? I'm assuming that's the premise.
Well, Barry Katz kind of gave me an idea of that, and I was like, okay, brilliant. Nobody's done that before. I want to do a show in Vegas. It's fascinating. People don't know that models can do comedy. And then I was doing a show in Paris, and we were scouting at 4 a.m. And we were like, okay, now where do we find models who are funny? But I got an amazing casting director, Daria Bariula, who was like on a lot of shows. I think it really helps, to have incredible casting. Like it's a teamwork, obviously. And we just had so many resumes, and, modeling. For me, model is an example of something. It's not somebody who looks a certain way, right? Like when I started, it was all about like blonde models, super skinny. Now they're different kind of models, and I always push for diversity. It's all about being an example of something, having that responsibility, to show something. So I think it was an interesting thing to scout like different type of models as well.
I will say the only line, and I'm going to sound terrible, and I'm going to say my co-host and our guest are not responsible for me saying this, but I draw my line at people like Tess Holliday modeling. I am all for plus size modeling, for normal size models, but now that they have this movement where they've got 400-pound girls walking the runway, I am against the girls that are violently skinny, and I am against the girls that are massively, massively supersized walking right now. I think
agree.
It's deeply unhealthy.
I think people do push boundaries I think it's all about intention, right? Like if you are authentic and there's good intention, but sometimes people push for the shock value because nobody has an attention span. Like that's what's happening with movies. Like that's what also I noticed, because everything is short content now. That's how the industry is changing. Like we talk about it in LA, there's no productions. So to say, a lot of my friends are leaving because everybody's pushing for short content. So business is changing, because we don't have the attention span and we push for shock value.
It's true, even in the edits. So I do a lot, the TV shows that we make. They're telling us to make our scenes shorter, quicker cuts, more jump cut. Like they're really wanting the constant push. Where I'm doing a show for BBC, and it's set in ancient Greece, and the speed at which they're needing these cuts to happen, and this is based on a book. So this is a best-selling series. And we need to have a discussion about pulling you on to be Aphrodite. That we do need to talk about. But essentially, the quick cuts that they need in this are going to ruin the pacing. So it's an ongoing fight. I'm constantly having to protect my clients' IPs from these kind of edits.
Yeah. I think you definitely have to fight back in a lot of ways for like authenticity, but there's still great things. Like I really enjoyed Mission Impossible, actually, so to say.
I got to see it.
Oh my God, I loved it. And whatever controversial about Tom Cruise, like he is such an incredible talent and pushing for the acting was incredible. All the stunts, like they really pushed for authenticity, and it shows. Like the work shows itself.
He's still doing his own stunts.
Yep.
The man's, I mean, bless him. That's incredible.
Yeah, so I think you always have to push back, no matter what is the trend currently, because there are always going to be trends that are coming. In entertainment, you just have to be a visionary, so to say.
It's funny, talking about all this stuff from transitions and modern day media, what people are looking at, from going from a model to a comedian to racing cars and starting your own businesses and supporting other people. You're in Hollywood basically consistently. It doesn't seem like you take much of a break, and it can be kind of hard for people to keep themselves in that industry. So I'm kind of wondering, how do you keep yourself grounded? How do you keep your kids grounded, everyone around you?
It's super hard, I have to say. I just came from the desert, so I think that helped a little bit. Just nature, being around animals. I work with a lot of wild animals. I love wolves. I kind of fell in love with them. I work with like wolf sanctuaries. One of my best friends, Ashley Elvis, she did this amazing documentary on wild horses. It's on Disney, a wild horse Mustang. Everybody check it out. It's like incredible just to learn about wild horses in America and how they're disappearing. And now we're pushing laws to protect wolves because they're, abandoned and shot in 24 hours. And a lot of times people just don't care, don't see the problem. So I work with sanctuaries and I fall in love with wild animals, maybe, and that kind of keeps me grounded because they're real.
So you race cars, you work with wolves. The outside does not. You're evil Knievel inside. You're a daredevil. That's all I'm getting from this. Is you are the prettiest daredevil I've ever seen. My God, that is the most unique contrast that I've ever heard of.
We're not given, like, how you look. It's not really my skill. So I thank my parents for whatever look you have, as long as you're healthy, but everything else is coming from the inside, right? Or your passion.
I like that.
Curiosity.
Absolutely.
I like that. That you are an enigma. I love that. Can we give another shout out to your event so people know what's going on? I'd love to push the advertisement on that.
Yeah, so it's June 8th. It's on my social media. You guys can see it. Tiffany Haddish, who's an amazing, amazing comedian, really well known, many specials. You can check her out. Is going to be performing. They're musicians. It is a private residency at in Warner Brothers estate. Daphne Zeman is putting it together. She's been working with women, against violence for a long time. It supports anti-human trafficking. Gives girls a lot of hope, and they're very hands-on. So, I'm working on putting it all together with incredible models of comedy as well. You can check on my Instagram, and, if you guys compelled, donate and support, because, we can always not buy extra coffee at Starbucks. That's what I do. At least I start for a reason, but donate, it's not that much, but it really changes lives. And I think it really changes your perspective.
Give everyone your social media so they know where to find you.
Okay. On Instagram, Eugenia Kuzmina, you can find it there.
We'll put up a link.
Okay,
No,
thank you
that's
guys.
a wonderful cause.
Of course, I
Absolutely.
think it's incredible. I love that you've had such an interesting life. You've been from one end of the world to the other. You have, you've had a lot, you've had a little. You have done so much to help so many. What has inspired you to help so many people in so many different ways? It's very, very unique.
I think it's a state of mind. It's a gratitude. Actually, a lot of times, like growing up, people were very negative around me, like, oh, you can never do that. And this is like impossible. And I just remember meditating on that and changing a state of mind and being in gratitude to just be alive. And, every time, I think there's two basic emotions, like love or fear, right? And you do everything either out of love or out of fear, no matter what it is. And every time now that I wake up, I really question, like, there's no, we're so used to just like running on the things and like all these billboards, like you have to do this, you have to do that. But I always take my time in the morning and think, like, what am I to contribute to, if I'm alive, and I'm grateful for that. Am I doing something out of love and not fear, like no matter what it is? And am I doing quality things and contributing to others, and not to like my ego, so to say? So it's an internal, thing that I love to think about it.
It sounds like you're more often than not always pushing for other people ahead of yourself almost. You're putting up other people, helping other people, kind of not necessarily at your expense, but you're putting them before yourself. And so I'm wondering, is that kind of what you can say contributes to your success, or do you also have to be a little selfish at times to help yourself progress?
Yeah, I think it's a balance of things. Obviously, I do have to set good boundaries. I think it's really important to go to therapy for that. I think it is important to, you can't pour in other people's glass if you don't have your own. And that's something that I struggle with, but I'm getting better. I truly believe in community. That's one thing that I miss a lot sometimes in Los Angeles, just because we're all in like a little bubbles of, cars and things like that. And I do feel the community is a huge thing that, is incredible, because other people have skills that you don't have. And, I want to be surrounded by people who are smarter than me and who are really talented. And I appreciate that. And, we can build something beautiful. Like, it's not based on like, okay, I want to be the best one and prove something to others, because it never, no matter how much you accomplish, it will never fill the hole in your heart, so to say.
That's a very good point.
What's the old adage? If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I agree with you on community. I think coming from outside, when you move to America, it's very isolating.
Yeah.
Very difficult to build that community and find that community.
It's true, yeah. But, we all come from somewhere. At least I love that, because it's not class oriented. I feel like in LA, what I find is, like, if you really work hard, your intentions are correct, you still will find amazing community here. And it's not,
I agree.
no matter where you come from. So there's still beautiful things about America in that sense. So like maybe naive belief in freedom. I don't know. It's been a strange time. But
I'm with you. This is my country by choice. I choose to be here. You choose to be here. It's, you don't have to. And that makes a big difference. I think that makes you appreciate it.
Yeah.
When you choose. Unlike you, Mr. Born here.
I got everything handed to me.
You cheated.
Biggest silver spoon in the world.
Being born in America, yes. Like, I don't care if you're the poorest person born in America. You got more opportunity than most people in the world. Sorry. Tangent, ongoing argument here. Now, with you, you have done everything. You've seen everything. You have succeeded in ways that most people could only dream of. What's next?
I'm very excited. We won like best short in French that we did during Cannes. It's French Riviera Film Festival, so it's not officially Cannes, but it was held during Cannes, and they give platform for like short film content, and it gave me opportunity to actually direct a play in Paris and also do another play in Paris with amazing directors. So I'm excited about that. I think Europe is really booming now with all kind of productions. So I kind of go where opportunity is, and doing live theater and, acting and maybe directing a play. That would be amazing, because I can also give platform for a lot of talent, and we got sponsors. So looking forward to that during Fashion Week.
Oh, I love that. I love
that's
that.
awesome.
I think that's incredible. I love it's funny when we interview people most of the time, they talk about how things will benefit them.
Right.
And this entire time, every time you talk about an opportunity for yourself, you keep talking about how to give it back to others. And that is such a unique point of view and such a positive point of view. I love it. I really love hearing that.
Like that, not so many wars, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely America. Yeah, it's globally. We're not doing so hot right now with the war thing. That's If everyone,
there's quite a few conflicts going on right now.
Yeah, it's not great. Now, Siberia. How old were you when you moved away from Siberia? May I ask?
I went to a really good school. So when I was 8, we moved to Moscow, and I've been back a little bit, but not so much. And yeah, I went to a really, really good school because of my dad, even though we didn't have money, like I felt like got a great education. But, at the time the regime was changing, and a lot of times people became oligarchs or gangsters, and people were shot right and left. And I definitely didn't feel safe. Even when I became a model at like 13, and then I lost my dad, I had to move to Paris to support my family at 15. And I was kind of like happy to move out, For me, it's really hard to come back because I know that there are no laws. That's for sure one thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. It's heavy.
I think it's incredible that you did that. And your spirit of giving is certainly a very unique thing. I'm going to put your social media out there. I want everyone to follow you and support you. I love what you are doing. You are an incredibly unique person.
Back at you guys. I think everybody has like a story, right? That's what,
Yeah.
is so interesting. So I learned a little bit about you as well. So thank you.
I like that we're able to, platform and put some attention, that you are putting the attention that comes to you on other people. And I think that makes you shine brighter. We definitely need to talk about putting you in one of my shows because I like you.
Thank you for a lot of things. Okay.
Perfect.
I was like, I'm gonna call you after the show. Thank you very, very much for joining.
Thank you guys. Okay. Thank you for your show. It's really fun.
Thank you for coming on.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Now she's incredible. I love that.
Oh yeah.
We usually have these great sign-offs. I'm not even worried about the sign-off, but
I've got a sign off.
Fine. You can sign off, but I do want to say, please follow her. I love that she's giving. I love that she's giving back. And for those that don't know, the Slavic doll era, Google it. There are docus everywhere about it. It was one of the hardest eras of modeling to come out during. Really incredible woman.
I couldn't talk about that, but I'd say go research for yourself because you're definitely not going to learn about it in the American school system. But beside that, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I'm your buddy Bear with my co-host, the Baroness, telling you that if you want to win, then make sure you listen in and follow us. We'll see you next week.
I'm only good for making it money. Talk to you soon.
This has been Behind the Scenes with the Baroness and Bear Fiorda, only on Talk 4 Media.